I've only been a content creator for a little over a year now. That still sounds a little bit odd to me referring to myself as a content creator, because I've always been a technical person. And I've seen a huge growth and a ton of interest in my channel. I just recently hit 50,000 subscribers, so a huge thank you to everyone who subscribed. And since I hit this huge milestone, I figured I'd do something a little bit different. Many of you asked how I created a tech YouTube channel and grew it in a short amount of time. And here's my answer to that. It all starts with an idea. Ideas can come from just about anywhere. Sometimes I think of them while walking, sometimes I think of them in the shower, sometimes I think of them in the middle of the night. So whenever you have an idea, you should jot it down right away. Because if you're like me, you might not remember what that idea was later on. But most of my videos are projects that I'm working on or things that I want to learn. And many of them come from you, the community, either on Twitch, YouTube comments, Discord, or on Twitter. And what I do is take those ideas and jot them down somewhere until they're a little more developed. And then I usually put them in something like Trello. I use Trello to plan most of my videos. It starts off with something really small, and then I keep building on that and adding ideas or notes until it's a little more developed. Then once this idea has enough momentum and has legs, then I move it into the to-do column. And that's usually where I'm committing to doing a project and creating some content. Now I'll keep building on this video idea and create a script for it. Now I keep my scripts really loose. They're just pretty much notes in a Word document. And I do that so I sound a little more natural, or how I would sound like if you met me in person. And not like the robot I used to look like and sound like in some of my earlier videos. And so now I'm kind of in the planning/creating phase. You see, for me, creating actually starts when I start to write down my rough outline of what I'm going to talk about. And again, I do that so I don't sound too rehearsed. Now, my outline follows this same format for almost all of my videos. It's something that I picked up working in large enterprises, doing PowerPoint presentations, or doing tech demos for engineers. And it all boils down to this. First, you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. Next, you're going to tell them. And last, you're going to tell them what you just told them. So what does that mean? That means it's broken down into 3 parts: an introduction, the body, or the main part of your discussion, and then your conclusion, or the ending, or the footer, however you look at it. And so in the beginning, you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. In this section, I usually tell people what they can expect, what I'm going to cover, and keep it really high level. That's because you don't want to give everything away in the beginning. And this can be done in many different ways. You could see if an intro works for you. I used to have one, but I found that many of my viewers bailed in the first 30 to 60 seconds from having an intro. And when I watch videos, I realize that I do the same thing. I'll skip through an intro if I know that it's going to be long and repetitive. And so that's when I realized I need to start making content that I would want to watch too. So even though I liked my intro and my animation, I had to swallow my pride and get rid of my intro. But since doing that, I've seen a huge increase in audience retention. And that's what I want, to captivate you and capture your attention and keep you engaged. But maybe one day I'll have a short animation again, we'll see. But I'll keep it short, I promise. So the next section, after you told them what you're gonna tell them, then you tell them. So this is the main part of your content where you dive deep into the details. These are some of the details you foreshadowed about in the intro, but with more color and context and details. This is where you'll spend a majority of your time talking about your topic. And then, if your audience is still there, you get into the outro or the conclusion. And that's where you tell them what you just told them. And this is pretty simple and straightforward. You just recap what you just talked about. And this is a good place to insert any pros or cons or reviews about either a product or a process that you're following. In all honesty though, it's a small percentage of viewers that actually make it to this point. So I usually keep it pretty brief. And you can see in my analytics, it's a very small percentage of people that actually make it to this point. But this is pretty common for any channel that's out there. And in this section too, I usually ask people thought-provoking questions, or ask them for comments, or ask them general questions about what they thought about the video. I always ask for feedback too, and I welcome it. And it's not just for the algorithm, I promise you. It's all feedback that I read, comment on, and take to heart. This video is because a lot of people ask me what my process is to record a video. So this is feedback that I'm applying to my next piece of content. But as you know from my videos, this is the section where I usually thank them and tell them, hey, see you next time. And then I started doing this thing where I have a clip from my live stream at the end of my video as my outro. And so this serves a couple purposes. One, it reminds people that I also live stream. Two, it lets you see a different side of me. The energy is a lot different in a live stream than it is talking to this camera. And most of the time, those questions or comments that I talk about in that stream are from the community that's there during the live stream. So I like to include you. But last, and definitely not least, it's there as a backdrop while it shows my recommended videos. And so that's how I kind of plan and deliver my content. But if I didn't capture that and upload it to YouTube, no one would ever see it. So filming is a huge part of this process too. I just had a mini panic attack. I thought I didn't hit the record button. And you might run into that too if you ever start recording videos for YouTube. But filming, this is something that can take hours or days, depending on your content. Fortunately for me, recording and filming is actually the easy part, but everything leading up to it is actually the hard part, because the topics and the preparation is pretty tough. So something that I didn't mention before that dovetails right into what I just said is that you should probably test what you're gonna teach before you actually record it. And you should probably do this in your planning phase. I've had to do this many times and I've learned how to get really efficient at it. But you might have to build out your environments or test your environments or the topics that you're gonna cover. Then you'll need to improve and adjust. Or you can do it like me and just test in production. Home production, still production to me. But I'm super guilty of this because most times I don't have a one-to-one test to production environment at home in my home lab. So a lot of times I'm doing this on my production systems at home, which I've kind of learned to deal with, even the mistakes. And when things go wrong, I just keep the camera rolling and adjust. And so lots of people have also asked me about the equipment I use when I record my videos. It can be accomplished with some really basic gear. When I first started, I used my Sony mirrorless camera that I use for photography and streaming to record myself. Then I used NVIDIA's built-in screen capture utility to record my desktop and slapped on a cheap lavalier microphone. That setup worked really great and it was a great way to get started. Half of my videos were recorded on that setup. If you see a video where I have a lav mic on, that means I'm using my old camera and my old gear. And really the only thing I had to purchase was the microphone because I had everything else from either photography or streaming. And so I've moved on to a little bit nicer camera, still a Sony mirrorless camera, but an a6400. And I paired that with some pretty inexpensive but very versatile lenses. And most of the time, I use this one lens you see me using now. And relatively speaking, this lens and this camera is pretty inexpensive for what I've been able to accomplish. And as far as audio goes, you'll see that I don't have a lav mic on. I've upgraded to a Rode shotgun mic. It's right about here. You can't even see it, just out of the frame. And I've paired that with a Go XLR Mini that I've had from streaming. And then I use Adobe Audition to record the audio, but we'll get into software here in a second. But as far as hardware goes, this is a pretty basic kit. If you'd like to see it, I'll have links down in the description below that you can check out if you like. One thing I had to do was upgrade a lot of lights too. I know you see a lot of lights in here. So I have some Elgato key lights up here that you can't see, that shine light down on me. And sometimes I use these newer portable lights to throw a little more light on me if I need. And then I also have an embarrassing amount of Philips Hue light bulbs in here sprinkled throughout the room. And these bulbs allow me to change the color or color temperature via an app or programmatically, like I do for my stream. I wrote a whole bunch of code to allow people in my stream to actually change the lights in here, which is another reason why I went with Philips Hue, because they have a decent API to do that, and I don't have to do it from the cloud. I could do it from my home lab. And then I have two big LED panel lights back there. You can't really see, but they're behind the couch for, well, more RGB lighting. And so, gear aside, part of filming is actually recording yourself. And this can be very awkward. I mean, imagine yourself sitting in a room all by yourself, staring into the camera and trying to act natural. Super awkward. This can take some getting used to. When I started out, I had no idea what I was doing. I tried acting fun and cool, but it felt really unnatural. Then I went for straight boring, but not intentionally. But I just decided to present the facts without any humor or any kind of excitement in my voice. And that didn't go too well either. I'm glad you guys hung in there for those videos. And then I realized I just need to treat the camera as if it's someone else in the room. And that's still really hard to do. I'm still trying to find my voice, as they say, but I think I'm getting better, but I'll probably still cringe when I edit this video. And then as far as the recording process goes, I just reach up here, hit record. I record directly to the micro SD cards on this camera. I usually have Adobe Audition open, recording the audio from my mic. Then I'll have OBS open, recording my desktop. And then OBS is also recording the audio as well, just for a backup audio. Now I know it's one microphone and not two mic sources, but I've had a few times where either OBS or Adobe Audition record some static, and the other recording that had audio on it was totally fine and saved my butt. And then after I have all those files, I just create a folder and put it all in there. I kind of arrange them in a certain way with subfolders, but it's pretty basic. Then there's recording B-roll. So B-roll is a term that's used for video that's supplemental or secondary to the primary footage. This type of video, B-roll, helps keep it interesting and move the story along. See that right there? That was B-roll. This is A-roll. So now that we've recorded everything that we need, now it's time to edit the video. I have a process that I made up myself. It's probably not the most efficient way, but it works for me. I bet you're wondering where I store the 20 to 30 gigabytes of files. So first of all, I move them off the devices onto my main machine, and then I back those all up to my TrueNAS server right away. And then I end up working on them locally. I would love to edit directly off my TrueNAS server, but I don't have 10 gigabit Ethernet here. And even if I did, I'm not entirely sure I would. You see, I keep all of my files locally when I edit them, and I create proxy files. Proxies are just low quality versions of the video that I can work on very easily. And it's less taxing on my machine. And so working with proxies, I get the best performance at the cost of a little bit of quality while I'm editing. But the quality is not reduced on the final render. So I usually kick off the conversion of all my proxies and I start editing audio while it's going. As I mentioned, I use Adobe Audition and I import my audio into there. I do a little tweaking, a little normalization, a little bit of compression, and a lot of stuff I learned from YouTube because I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to audio. Well, I've learned a little bit, but I had no idea when I started. Then after I get the audio pretty decent, I import everything into Adobe Premiere. Now, I will say that the Adobe suite is not cheap. And I know there's a lot of free solutions or low-cost solutions that are out there. Totally not against them, I've tried them. But I get a pretty good deal of the Adobe suite on Black Friday. And I've had that deal now for almost a year and a half. And yes, I'd love to use cheaper, non-subscription based software, but I end up using Audition, Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe Photoshop every time I create a new project. And as I figured out over time, it's tough to have a good workflow with a lot of disparate pieces of software. Not making excuses, it's expensive, don't get me wrong, but I guess I just need to create more videos so I get more value out of my subscription. So anyways, after everything's imported into Adobe Premiere, then I use After Effects right away to create some transitions and some effects, like this little box that I'm talking in right now. And then I line everything up and sync it up, and then I start cutting. This part of the process probably takes the longest out of everything. When I shoot videos, it can be anywhere from about 45 minutes to 2-3 hours, depending on how bad my project goes. And then I edit that down to 10 or 15 minutes. I do this process twice. I go over the whole entire thing just to make sure I don't have any mess ups or any awkward pauses or silences. Then I'll switch camera angles if it applies. Then I bring in all the B-roll and figure out where it goes. After things look pretty good, then I find some music. Sounds easy, right? No, it's actually really hard. Well, used to be hard. So with my music, I keep it really low and subdued. So I do some audio processing on my music. And I always choose music from Harris Heller. He created a ton of music that can be used for free and without the worry of getting a DMCA strike or paying royalties. There are tons of songs in many different genres, so highly recommend you check them out. But last but not least is adding any transitions or any other effects or titles. I intentionally leave this last because this is something that I could cut out if I'm in a pinch, especially if you're trying to meet a specific goal or timeline. That's why I leave these last, because this is just the icing on the cake. And then, after everything's done, I do a final render for YouTube. This used to take quite a bit of time, but now my 3090 just crushes this in 5 to 10 minutes. Having this card has been a huge time saver for me because I usually render it a few times. After I render it, I'll watch it 2 or 3 times and end up finding some kind of mistake or something I need to fix and then have to render it all over again. And there are plenty of times where I don't catch a mistake, and you guys let me know in the comments, so please keep doing it, keep them coming. And now, we think we're done, right? No, we're not done. If you plan on uploading to YouTube, you still have to create thumbnails. So after I've accepted the video and signed off on it internally by myself and rubber stamped it, I start to create thumbnails. Thumbnails are important. This and your title are very important because it helps people understand what your video is about. And at the same time, it tries to entice people to click on it. I do spend a fair amount of time creating thumbnails, but I usually know what my thumbnail is before I start creating it. All during this process, I actually think about what my thumbnail is going to be. I have mine already picked out. It's right here, the very first line of my script or my document. Thumbnail idea, how it started, how it's going, me. And that's what it's gonna be. I haven't created it yet, but it will be that. You may have noticed that now I include my face and my thumbnails. I don't like doing it, but there's a reason behind it and it's intentional. There's lots of data behind whether or not people click on thumbnails with a person in it or a thumbnail without a person in it. And more people click on thumbnails with a face in it. So I decided to include my face in my thumbnails. Now, this may or may not work for you. I started without faces and I switched to faces. And there are lots of channels out there that still don't use faces that do really, really well. So take that as a grain of salt. YouTube says faces do better, so I'm gonna go with faces in my thumbnails. So now we're done, right? No, we're still not done. So we did a ton of work already, but we still have to upload it to YouTube, review it on YouTube for quality and DMCA strikes or monetization, create titles, tags, descriptions, and all of the time codes for the video. That in itself is another huge task, but I always enjoy this part because it means I'm almost done. And once I have that all set, I schedule a time and I nervously wait until it launches, which for me is kind of scary. It's not like software. It's not like I can go back and fix and iterate on this project and re-release my code and push it back out. When you record something and put it out there on YouTube, it's done. You can't go back and edit that video that's already published unless you release a new one. So I kind of like that about YouTube videos. It's pretty much done unless you ever do it again, which is not the case with software when I develop it. It's never done. And so that's almost everything that goes into making my YouTube videos. It all starts with an idea until it grows big enough to become a video. From there, I edit, record, publish, add metadata to my video and hope that everyone out there is entertained or at least learns something. I know I'm not the most entertaining person. I've also learned a ton about how to grow a channel and grow a community, how the YouTube algorithm works, and how to keep your viewers engaged during a video and even after. And there are also so many things you'll have to do after releasing your video too. But if you'd like to learn more about that, let me know in the comments section below. So I hope this helps you understand what goes into creating a YouTube video. You could apply the same formula to a presentation or a tech demo at home or at work. So thank you so much for this incredible journey to 50,000 subscribers. I couldn't have done it without you, of course. Thank you again. And remember, if you found anything in this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. But yeah, let me know what you guys have been working on. I like I said, a bunch of random stuff, but I love to hear what you guys are working on. That's the question that I pose to you guys every Saturday because I love to hear. I get inspired too. And I'm not gonna lie, like my next video is coming, but after that I'm kind of like, what's next? Usually I have this huge backlog of things I do. I have a huge backlog, but things that I'm either doing or going to do next, and I'm kind of getting close to the end of like that backlog, the to-do backlog. The others are just kind of like maybe kind of idea stuff. So if you guys have ideas, throw it at me too.